Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man?
Doing good, man. Just been staring at my phone all day with this free agency, and there's not much else that's going on.
Yeah, I've been glued to my phone when I'm not taking naps because I had to wake up at 4:45 this morning. So we're gonna chug through, but very sleepy boy right here. So, but we're in for a really good show. So we're gonna go through some of the day one free agency stuff, probably fly through it, kind of give quick thoughts, and then we'll do a larger recap when we don't have to talk about a position that requires a lot of talking. And then, obviously, as you can see, if you're watching, we will be talking through the 2022 wide receiver class, which is a very, very good one. Before we get started, Randy, where would you stack this class up compared to even last year?
I would say it's probably deeper. Honestly, curious myself where the scores stop for me.
Yeah.
Through 15, I have the lowest being a 68 overall, grade. That's relatively good. I think that's third round, fourth round. So that's some good depth for a class.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is deeper. I think obviously there's not really a Jamar Chase at the top.
No,
but it's not every year you're gonna get a Jamar Chase.
I would argue this is closer to the 2020 class where maybe CD and Judy were higher up prospects per se, but the class as a whole there was 3 or 4 that could go first, and there's going to be 5 in the first, and we're all excited about all these wide receivers. I think it's close to that, and probably can have the same kind of impact.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we don't have a whole lot of time to dick around this evening. So first, so just a quick recap of all the trades if you haven't been tuned in. Russell Wilson was traded to the Broncos early last week. Carson Wentz was traded to the Washington Commanders. Khalil Mack was traded to the Chargers, and Amari Cooper was traded to the Cleveland Browns. Those were the big trades that preceded free agency opening up, which it hasn't technically opened up. It's we're just in the legal tampering, so it's pretty much open.
But those are all trades that happened after our 2-round mock draft show on Monday.
Yes,
which shaked up a lot of that.
Yeah, and then free agency has done the same. So, so quickly, we'll start with the Jaguars because they are the talk of everything right now because they are throwing money around like crazy. They are kind of an internet meme, which is normal for the Jaguars, but so all of the guys that they've signed so far, Christian Kirk, 4 years, $72 million with a max of 84. He's making about $21 million per year, I think, or $18 million per year, I think it is.
That sounds closer. 21 would be 84. That's
right, which is the incentive. So if he hits all of his incentives, he's making $21 million per year, which is more than Amari Cooper, who cost a 5th-round pick. Brandon Scherff was signed, but they don't have numbers yet. Foley Fatukasi, Foye Olakun, Tyler Shatley, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones all got deals from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Zay Jones got $8 million per year. Thoughts? What do you think of what they're doing? Are you scared for them?
So I was, because they started off today by signing Scherff and signing Fatukasi and Foye, and I was like, oh shit, they're nailing this so far. because they like those are all great deals, great players that are going to fit really well. I do know, like, obviously they got rid of a veteran guard that was making a lot of money to pay another veteran guard that's going to make a lot of money, and they got rid of a linebacker that's making a lot of money to pay another linebacker to make a lot of money. So it's a little bit stupid, but I really think Foye can probably fit what they want to build in this linebacking room a little bit better. So we'll see how it goes. He played incredibly well the last few years, so I think it's a good signing. And then it got tipped over with the Christian Kirk signing and overpay by everyone's estimation. But that we'll see. Because like Christian Kirk is someone we both thought of as a good signing for a lot of teams, but we thought it'd be more in the realm of like 14 million, maybe 16, because that's what it seemed like. But
and
Jesus.
after I saw the Gallup deal, I didn't think Christian Kirk would even make 15, because I think Gallup is a better wide receiver than Christian Kirk, personally. Now I know there's injury risk and whatnot, but yeah, I'm just floored by that deal. I am floored by Evan Ingram making almost the tag, because the tag for tight end, so he has an opportunity to make 10 million off of this with incentives.
Shatley's a lineman too, so I thought that was a good signing. Like, it was cheap, even if he's rotational. The Ingram, again, it was another one where I'm like, why? Like,
Yeah.
I thought Dan Arnold played exceptionally this year. So I know he got hurt and everything, but bringing in Ingram, it just seems like a ridiculous overpay.
For what it's worth, I think Peterson's going to run some 12 personnel because he liked using 2 tight ends in Philadelphia. So I think you're looking at your weapons being the guys that they signed today, plus Dan Arnold and Marvin Jones sprinkled in there, I think.
Well, but that's the other thing. They signed 2 tight ends and a receiver, or 2 receivers and a tight end. Yeah, and they have Laviska. They have Marvin Jones.
I'll be shocked if Laviska makes it, dude. I don't know if he'll make it out of camp.
2 running backs, Dan Arnold. Like, how do you spread that?
Yeah, I don't know, but I will say at least they have to overpay for it, but at least they're putting things around Trevor Lawrence and they're trying. So
yeah.
So I don't want to hate on them too much. All right, let's move on to the Dolphins, who were probably the second most active team in terms of big names. So they signed Emmanuel Ogbah, who we talked about, 4 years, $65 million. Massive deal, but he's been massively productive for them. We just talked about that a couple weeks ago on the Friday Fix. Go check that out if you haven't. Chase Edmonds, 2 years, $12.6 million. Really, really nice deal for what I assume will be their starting running back. I mean, $6 million is telling me that, yes, he's going to start, but in this scheme, in this system, that's solid. That's like going into day 3 looking for a running back. Obviously, it's more expensive, and you didn't assume that they would pay even that much, but Chase Edmonds is also better than a day 3 player at this point. So, good deal in my estimation. And then Cedric Wilson and Teddy Bridgewater. Cedric Wilson was a bargain too. I think that's a fantastic signing. I really like what the Dolphins are building at this point.
Yeah, Cedric Wilson pretty much just replaces an improvement, but replaces all the slot speed, smaller receivers that they had on the roster besides Jalen Waddle, because most of them are free agents or cut casualties. So he is, the better version of it, him and Waddle. And then, Parker and Preston, we'll see what they do with that. But I think they have good weapon core, and the Bridgewater, I don't like it personally, mainly because I liked resigning Brissett more, not necessarily this. I think you're inviting competition questions when it's not needed, when this GM and front office and owner were all behind Tua, and then you sign a guy that started most of the year. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Now, I will say I think that's better insurance than Brissett. I think Teddy's a little better.
He is.
And if they do have their concerns, that's just a massive, massive deal for a backup quarterback. $10 million for a year. That's crazy. That's more than Mitchell Trubisky, who we will jump down to if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
Mitchell Trubisky, where the heck are the Steelers?
3 down.
Yeah. So Mitchell Trubisky, 2 years, 14 million, but with the opportunity to make over 26 million, I think I saw in
Yeah,
incentives.
something like that.
So they're giving him every opportunity to go out and be the starting quarterback for the Steelers moving forward. Do you think this stops them from
Not even
drafting
close.
a rookie?
You don't even
think
have
he's
to
the
finish.
bridge?
Yeah, you don't even have to finish.
Fair.
It doesn't have to necessarily be a bridge either. I think that's where people are so used to, like with the Russell Wilson situation with Matt Flynn, that we think that's or the Baker Mayfield and Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert and Tyrod Taylor and every other quarterback and Tyrod Taylor.
Davis Mills.
Yeah, everyone thinks it's like that. Where I think he gets the opportunity to win the job. I think you still draft a quarterback, it possibly at 20 still, and then you trade back and take one a little later. But this way you still get 2 shots at the future in 1 year cheaply, really. And worst case, well, worst case for you both are shit. But there's a chance that Trubisky plays well, gets them in the playoffs, and doesn't do anything spectacular, but gets it going. And then whoever they draft, Willis, Corral, Howell, who gives a shit, they sit for an entire year,
which is what
and
they
then,
all need.
Yeah, and then next year it's a true battle. Yeah. And then we'll see what happens. You're not tied to him with this exuberant contract either. But yeah, this is a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, if this was all it took, I wish the Browns would have done that to give Baker some competition, but I don't think they would be willing to go up to that over $26 million in incentives. This deal was done at the combine from what I saw. So everyone kind of knew this was happening. All right, Jets got Laken Tomlinson to start at sorry.
Quickly, Steelers had another signing.
Oh, yeah. I skipped over that. Chukwuma Okorafor, they've re-signed him. He was their, I believe, right tackle for a lot of the year, and he played well. 3 years, 29 million. I think that's an overpay personally, but they don't have many pieces on that offensive line, so you may as well keep the ones that are okay. Yeah, it's kind of what I think of that. So, back up to the Jets, Laken Tomlinson was one of the best guards on the market. Obviously, the guard market has fluctuated over the last couple of days, but 3 years, 40 million for the Jets. This is good stuff. Their offensive line is legit, and they are really doing what they can. If Becton works out and Fant probably starts at right tackle at this point, is kind of my guess. Is they chose to go interior, so they're not going to bring back Moses. So I kind of think that that's what they want to do. Is Becton works out at left tackle, you put Fant at right tackle, and then you're set. I think moving forward.
Yeah, he is one of the better guards. They also re-signed Connor McDermott, who was a guard that also was their center last year. So I assume that is to be a center for them this year. So they do have Vera Tucker, Laken Tomlinson, and Connor McDermott in the middle, and then like you said, the 2 tackles. I would assume the Tomlinson signing is a positive sign for Becton. At least the weight issues and character issues going forward, because I think you save that money and try and get Ike Ekwonu instead, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think Becton posted some workout videos that we haven't talked about. He's looking like he's focused and motivated and stuff. So I think they're happy with that. They also signed they also signed Braxton Berrios, Lamarcus Joyner, and CJ Uzama. CJ Uzama got a pretty fat deal, 3 years, 24 million. Yeah, so he gets his payday and he gets to go be in a scheme that's going to utilize him. I really like that fit. I think that's a fantasy relevant tight end right there too. If you're thinking about fantasy,
yeah, it is. It's $8 million per. They haven't signed another receiver, which they still could do in the draft and sign one. But they re-signed Berrios, but he's a special teams ace for them and a rotational player in offense. They were always going to re-sign him. I really like what they've done here. Uzama was an enormous signing in my opinion. We've been like discussing what drafting tight end they're going to pick. They still could pick one, but I think this puts it more to day 3 for sure at this point.
Or
But they have
later
so-
day 2.
yeah,
You know,
but
not at the top of the second.
they got so many picks. Like they're in a terrific setup right now,
Yeah, for sure.
which
But
which is why don't be shocked if they trade up or reach for someone that's going to play center. That's just what I got to put out there.
interesting. Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. The Bengals went and they got some reinforcements for their offensive line as well. Alex Kappa, 4 years, $40 million. Pretty good deal for what I was looking at as the best guard on the market, I think. And then Ted Karras, 3 years, $18 million. This guy keeps getting paid. He doesn't play very well. I don't know. Like $6 million a year is kind of a lot for what I assume is going to be their starting center now. So they kind of reaffirmed at least the interior of that offensive line, which they needed to. Reaffirmed as a stretch. I like Kappa. So that's all. I'll leave it at.
Yeah, Kappa is a great signing. I think these are great signings. It still doesn't take away the possibility of trading for Larry Tunsil or multiple other people. So that's very good.
Yeah, for sure. Eagles signed Hassan Reddick, 3 years, $45 million. Feels like an overpay, but he's played well over the last 2 years. So I mean, he was always going to get that, I think.
Yeah, I am concerned about it only for what they're going to use him for. I know they run a 3-4, so this is the scheme that'll fit him. But like, you have 3 first-round picks. You could draft an edge, and you still probably will. It just seems like you said that, why
maybe they don't. Maybe now they're looking all offense with those picks.
No
maybe
way.
Just one secondary pick and then 2 offensive picks.
I think if they do more than one offensive pick with those 3 picks, they've screwed up.
Oh, I don't
personally
think I agree. I don't think I agree. We can talk about that off the air though. We don't have time. So yeah, the $15 million for what has been a productive player for the last 2 years. That's not terrible, but it feels like an overpay. Bears signed Larry Ogunjobi, 3 years, $40.5 million. Happy to see Larry get paid. Wish the Browns would have done it a couple years ago, but they couldn't. But he went out and showed out for the Bengals, and now the Browns are in just kind of defensive tackle purgatory. It's like the new quarterback of the Browns. They are in 1-year deal realm, and they signed Taven Bryan, the former first-round pick of the Jaguars, who sucked for the last 3 years. 2 years. He was okay his first couple of years, and then he just never got better. 1 year, $5 million, and he's going to be a starter for the Browns as of right now. So don't love it. Not a huge fan, but upside. It's the same as the Malik McDowell signing from last year, I think, which worked out for a little while.
And they did draft D tackles last year that could work out. We have high hopes for the future, so we'll see what happens.
Well, it's going to be Jordan Elliott and Tommy Togiai, and I hate that. So
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, we'll see if Togiai takes a step forward. Packers, they were able to re-sign Devondre Campbell. We just talked about this on the Friday Fix this last week because teams that were looking for a linebacker should have been on the phone with his agent. 5 years, $50 million. That's a pretty good deal. I mean, his market value was around $7 million. I think he got paid a little more, but also the Packers may have gotten a bargain with how well he played last year.
Like I said, like we literally just discussed this on Friday. 5 years, $7 million per. Yeah, that makes sense. That's his value. It won't be the signing. That's exactly what we said. We said it was going to be a bidding war. Yeah. This is perfect description.
Yeah. Then they also extended Preston Smith, 4 years, $52.5 million. They cut Zadarius Smith, which is notable because they just couldn't pay all these guys. And then Aaron Rodgers got 4 years, $200 million. But that was last week, so you probably already knew that.
Yeah. Again, still after the show.
I know. Yeah, a lot has happened in the last week. Okay. Any thoughts on those two?
Just I don't know how they have the cap, but good signings, good re-signings.
This is the year they're drafting a wide receiver. I'm telling you, they have
to. That's the other thing is they tagged obviously Devontae Adams, and he said he's not planning on tag. So are you extending him for 5 years? You know,
right? As a
100 million,
30-year-old,
like 150
yeah,
million. How are you paying these? I don't.
a lot of void years. I don't know. They must be on the phone with people in the Saints organization. So,
I guess.
um, but yeah, it's a little wild. Colts re-signed Mo Alley Cox, 3 years, 18 million. They're still in the market for some of the bigger names. For what it's worth, they were in on Evan Ingram. I think that they may still be looking to add to their tight end room. But $6 million means that they're going to probably operate in 12 personnel a little bit more if they're still
Yeah.
looking.
This tells me that they're not sure what picks they're going to have for the draft. That's what this says more than anything to me. And
That's
he
fair.
was a decent. He's not. He's never going to be this fantasy god. He
No.
plays a good role in the team. That's it.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about the Colts other than they're screwed at quarterback unless they make a splash trade here soon, which could be happening as we speak. I don't know. I'm not looking at my phone right now. Lions, they re-signed a lot of people that they already had. So I think
That's
the
all I
one
get.
so I think the most notable one is Tracy Walker, 3 years, 25 million. We talked about that when we did the Friday fix, how
Yep.
that would be a good move. Alex Anzalone, he
Same
didn't
exact
get
thing.
that. Yeah, I mean, he didn't get a whole lot of money, and he was productive at times last year. Josh Reynolds, 2 years, 12 million. I'm surprised.
I'm
Um,
not.
at 6 million a year, though, like they didn't even. I mean, they utilized him, but that shows me that maybe they're not looking at wide receivers as heavy via free agency, and they're gonna
No, they're
attack it
not.
via the draft.
I
So
think what it sounds like is they're in the mix for a couple guys of free agency, like Allen Robinson, and then
yeah,
if that doesn't work, they're focused on the draft. This gives them two instant winners and Amon Ra and Reynolds that are consistent and they trust, and they can get rid of pretty much everyone else in the room, and then
yeah,
bring in more because they have multiple picks as well. If they don't sign someone, they're drafting a receiver with their first one of their first three picks, plain and simple, in my opinion.
that's fair. Not much to say about the Lions. The Bucks, obviously, the big news yesterday was that Tom Brady unretired. He was retired for a very short amount of time. They also then were able to re-sign Ryan Jensen at 3 years, 39 million. Aaron Stinney and Carlton Davis at just 15 million per. That blew my mind. That is a hometown discount. I don't know
Yep.
why he would take that. I know that he was injured last year and maybe his market wasn't what
Rings.
he thought. Yeah, also rings. Um, I just don't think that team's as competitive. I think they're losing too many pieces.
Who'd
But
they lose?
they're both the running backs. I don't think Fournette's coming
Oh,
back on a hometown discount. I think that
no,
matters for that
but
team.
I think the running back's replaceable. I think both the guards is where it actually hurts. But
Yeah,
besides that, they haven't lost anything yet.
yeah.
They
You're,
brought back Godwin. I mean, they
yeah.
already had lost AB, but
That doesn't count. Yeah, we'll see. Bucks are running it back, I guess, out of nowhere. Just
well, they have to replace both guards still. Um, for what it's worth, I believe there's multiple sources have tried to reach out to Ali Marpet, and it seems like he's sticking to his guns, unlike Tom, uh,
yeah,
and just staying retired, which is good for him. Happy for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he retires. But you know, whenever whenever someone retires early like that, and then like immediately proposes and this like makes life changes like that, it's usually done with. I mean, same with Andrew Luck, where everyone questions it every single season and still are questioning it right now with the Colts QB situation. But
yeah.
I still think it's one of those where it's like, yeah, he's just happy. He played. He wants to stop.
We're not gonna have time to get through everyone, so let's just hit the notables.
Just these next three, just sprint. Well, next four, just
Well,
sprint through the re-signings quickly.
yeah.
Just say
So,
them.
so the Cardinals got James Conner, 3 years, 21 million, and Zach Ertz, 3 years, 31 million. They also brought back Colt McCoy to be their backup, Dennis Gardeck, at whatever.
Special teams.
Yeah. Rams, Joe Noboom, they brought back tackle, not guard.
Yeah,
They're starting right
right
tackle.
tackle.
Yeah,
Yep.
because Whitworth was there. 3 years, 40 million. He got paid. Brian Allen, 3 years, 24 million. Seahawks re-signed Al Woods, 2 years, $9 million. Sidney Jones, just $3.6 million for this year, which is a pretty good deal. And then Quandre Diggs, 3 years, $40 million. He got paid, and you just talked about that.
Yeah.
I said I thought that they would get priced out, and I think that is priced out for what the Seahawks are. But
they'd spend that for him right there.
Yep. So, but that's a good signing. He's a good player. Cowboys re-signed Michael Gallup, 5 years, $57.5 million, which came down from the reported number. So that's a fantastic deal for Michael Gallup, in my opinion. Just great. DeMarcus Lawrence, 3 years, $40 million, also all guaranteed. So DeMarcus Lawrence is just rich. All these guys are rich, but like he's extra rich. Chargers went crazy today. So they re-signed Mike Williams last week, 3 years, $60 million, but they also signed JC Jackson, 5 years, $82.5 million. Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson, both at defensive tackle, for a combined $38 million over the next 3 years. So 2 years for Austin Johnson, 3 years for Sebastian Joseph Day. Chargers are legit. They're Super Bowl contenders.
Yep, they have just missed the playoffs the last 2 seasons, and something tells me they're tired of it. They're going balls to the wall. They still owe their first-round pick, so probably on defense as well, maybe right tackle. But it's hard to say they're like a lock for Jordan Davis like we thought they would be now, especially with those 2 signings. But shit, no. Oh, and obviously they traded for Khalil Mack too. So.
Yeah, they're crazy. That defense is going to be crazy. Yeah. Titans, they re-signed a bunch of their own guys, Jeff Swain, Ben Jones, Harold Landry. Harold Landry got the bag. Good for Harold Landry. He deserved it. He played well over the last 3 years. 5 years, $87.5 million for him. Patriots brought back Hoyer, Ferenc, and Jason McCourty. Devin.
Yeah.
Jason. Damn twins. They got good deals on them. Of course, it's the Patriots. Broncos just brought in DJ Jones, 3 years, $30 million. And it's worth noting that they brought back Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton in the middle of the year, and those deals look fantastic after the Christian Kirk signing and some of the other wide receiver stuff.
And what is it? They just replaced Shelby Harris with DJ Jones. So
yeah, which is an upgrade, I think. So good work from the Broncos. Texans signed a couple of offensive linemen, Justin Britt, AJ Khan. Deals. So AJ Khan, 2 years, $10.5 million. He's had a couple down years, but he's a good player when healthy. And probably
their line's atrocious. Besides, their tackles are good, but besides that, their interior's bad. So perfect science.
They cut their right tackle today too, so they have to replace that. I don't remember off the top of my head who it is. I should know this. Giants signed 2 interior offensive linemen as well. Mark Lewinsky, 3 years, $20 million. John Feliciano. That number hasn't come out yet, but the Giants are committed to improving their offensive line, which makes me think that they are not going that way in the draft, other than maybe one tackle.
The Giants. Yeah, they're still going tackle. Maybe interior still, like because they're losing most of their interior linemen. So. And it's Marcus Cannon. Howard is really the staple with Tunsil. So again, they'll still need tackle if they trade Tunsil, but it's fine.
Which I expect. Vikings, Harrison Phillips, 3 years, $19.5 million. Panthers, Austin Corbett, and then Xavier Woods, both 3-year deals, kind of throwing some money around. A little nervous that they feel that they're out of the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes now. I think it's either the Saints or the Panthers, and the Panthers are not being as careful.
Or they're spending the money because they have no draft capital and they're about to trade their first-round pick.
True. Very true. And then the Chiefs, right before we got on, signed Justin Reed to a 3-year, $31.5 million deal. That is a freaking bargain for Justin Reed.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
What in the world? I'm kind of pissed about it. I'm not too happy. So, but good for Justin Reed. He gets to go compete for championships after being on the Texans. So
thank God.
We think that's most of them. Obviously, we probably missed some throughout the day, and there will be some that break while we're talking about these wide receivers, which we definitely need to get into because we talk about wide receivers a lot. Any lasting comments on the free agent
busy
one.
fucking day. Busy,
Yeah.
but there's still a lot of names out there that are going to be a major impact. So,
Yeah.
especially there's still a couple good receivers, running backs. You only really saw one. You know, like Chandler Jones still out there, Von Miller, Odell. Like there's tons of people out there.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump into the 2022 wide receiver class. We gave our initial thoughts on what the class kind of looks like stacked up to the other classes. I'm really high on this class. I think that this class can be very, very good. We're gonna go via Randy's rankings, and I'll tell you guys where I rank these players. So we're gonna start. Randy, who is your wide receiver one?
Yeah, it's Garrett Wilson.
Okay.
I want to preface this was Treylon Burks. Uh, and then the testing numbers came out and he slipped a little bit, unfortunately. In fact, they are actually tied for one. Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson are tied for one for me, but because Wilson does have a slight concerning grade knock, I'm keeping him at one. You can see from the highlights here, everything he does is just ridiculous. He still, I think, has some route running, like certain trees that I want to see a little bit more from him. I think we didn't see a consistent amount of out routes from him, and I think that's mainly because that was Olave's route.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only reason why we didn't see it a lot from him. But he's an absolute game-changing playmaker for a team. He's a great route runner. Even though I did knock him a little bit right there, but it's more just nuanced things for him. He gets the release. His feet are ridiculous. And he's, I would say, probably the best body control receiver in this class. And you see it at any time. We're on the sideline or in the red zone. The only other thing I ever get annoyed with, and we saw it during the combine drills, is sometimes he just does a little bit too much leaping when he's catching the ball. I think it's just like an embracing thing, but sometimes across the middle you don't want stuff like that. And we didn't see a lot of that in college. So I'm not worried, but just like routes, like right there, just 5 yards of separation, 3 yards off the ball. I don't understand how that's even fucking possible. But he's just great at every route. I think he can work at any system. Obviously, with his size being 5'11", 192, I think he could play inside outside with a reliance on inside a lot more of the time, or just getting the ball in his hands quickly. I think he can do a lot of damage and be a PPR monster like Deontay Johnson for the Steelers, where maybe you don't think he's a wide receiver one, but let me promise you, he's a wide receiver one in fantasy, and he will do that for whoever drafts them. Literally, the only I gave little knocks there, but the only concerned knock I have for him, and I believe you have the same thing, it's just blocking. And I have that for both Ohio State receivers here in the draft. There's just not, I don't think there's an overwhelming ask from Ohio State for the receivers to block. But with Garrett Wilson specifically, a lot of the times it seems like he will not block. He's more a runoff than a block guy. And certain schemes that's not going to work. And I think it's something he'll clearly work at, but my God, just studying the route running for these two Ohio State receivers, it just is shocking how Brian Hartline isn't an NFL wide receivers coach or offensive coordinator at this point. It's ridiculous.
Well, he's en route. I mean, he just got a promotion this year, and well deserved. Yeah. So my thoughts on Garrett Wilson. I do have the blocking concerns, and when I was making that little cut up there, a lot of his blocking issues are effort too. Like you can tell he goes to block, and then he's like, I don't really want to do this. And it actually cost them some yards at times, and I think that's where I get a little concerned. I do have a bit of concern about his level of physicality. He does have really good body control, but I think you can also push him off his route a little bit if you get a really physical corner. I would love to see him, and I wish we would have seen it this year, him matched up against Sauce Gardner. I would like to see how that matchup played out. I think Sauce, a lengthy physical corner, is a guy that's going to give him some issues, but I think you combat that by saying, okay, play in the slot then for a little bit, and he can win there because you're not going to put a big physical corner as your slot corner 9 times out of 10 unless you're Jalen Ramsey. So
I just agreeing with you there. I my lowest grades on him are physicality and catching traffic. Because most of the
Yeah.
times, I don't know if it's the games you watch as well, but most of the times for Garrett Wilson for his catch and traffics, there was no fucking traffic. Like the balls that would be traffic, some other, whether it was Rucker or Njigba or Olave, there's room. There's fucking room everywhere on the field. That's
Yeah.
the main
It's
concern I
nuts.
have with both receivers. I think just in traffic and then physicality stuff, we didn't see a lot because we didn't have to.
Right.
Because
Well, and
they're
that,
just open and the scheme is great. And there's a lot of option routes in the offense to just get rid of all that concern.
well, and that's the other thing too. Teams don't press Garrett Wilson because Garrett Wilson does have legit speed and he can blow right by you.
Yeah.
Same thing with Chris Olave. I think Olave does handle press a little bit better, but man, when Garrett Wilson fills out his frame a little bit and actually starts to, I think where he lacks is his hand usage. I think he's been so skilled at winning with his footwork that maybe he hasn't refined his hand usage just yet up top, and that's fine. That's kind of what you see. I mean, people had concerns about Rashad Bateman's, and then he was getting wide open in the NFL when he was healthy last year. So
Yeah.
I think Garrett Wilson is in the mold of Stephon Diggs. That will be my comp. I think that they play a very, very similar style. I think Garrett Wilson is a more athletic Stephon Diggs. I think that after the catch, he does some special things. Just a special player. The route running, the way he works blind spots is just remarkable. You don't see it too often out of prospects to have that nuance. It's very Judy-esque, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's probably why my wide receiver one was as Jerry Judy was.
Yeah.
But for the ceiling, I know it's weird to say floor ceiling comp, but floor ceiling comp would be like the Tyler Lockett that he's compared to a lot because of the size and speed. I mean, if that's your worst case, is you get an offensive wide receiver two that will literally light up the scoreboard for you. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
To
Which I find
clarify,
interesting.
I have 5 first-round grade receivers. So
I think I have 4, right?
yeah, Olave sneaks in for me.
I gotcha. Yeah.
But
He's
again,
close for me.
yeah.
I should also say too, Garrett Wilson's my wide receiver 2. He is not my 1.
Barely.
And it might change if London's pro day numbers aren't great and he's not as athletic as I think he is. But also Drake London, there's videos of him doing 360 dunks in high school, so I feel pretty good about that.
Well, yeah, he was legit. We'll just go right into Drake London because he's your wide receiver one.
We'll come back to Traylon.
Yeah. He was the legit USC basketball player, so he has all those skills. But I'll let you take it away for Drake London because he's your one.
Yeah, so for a while there, I was nervous about Drake London's evaluation because the bigger body receivers that largely went on jump balls and above the rim have not panned out over the last few years. And I know I have a soft spot for guys like this, but then when you get to watching Drake London, you realize that he is so much more than all of that. If you're watching right now, he's got incredible yak ability. He's really, really good after the catch, but the nuance that he has in his routes for a guy that size, it's special stuff. I don't know if you guys saw, if you're watching right now, at the top of that stem, he takes one jab. It's very, very similar. I just mentioned Rashad Bateman. It's what I really liked about Bateman's route running last year is he'll take a jab at the top of his stem and then he'll flatten out. And then when he flattens out, he's got 5 yards of separation too. The way that Drake London creates separation doesn't always look like Drake London or Garrett Wilson. He's not always doing it with his footwork, but he is physical at the top of his stem, so he can win that way. He's going to go up and beat you above the rim, and he's able to beat press because he has that mixture of hand usage and pretty good footwork. I just don't see a world where Drake London is like some of these other jump ball guys unless he's used like that. I look at Drake London, I'm struggling on my comparison, but I think it's Mike Williams, but Mike Williams used the way he was for the Chargers at the beginning of last year. Whereas like early career Mike Williams, where they just sent him down the field on go routes, I worry that that's what the outcome for Drake London could be if a team doesn't see him the way I kind of do. But man, I mean, that size speed combo mixed with what he can do after the catch, mixed with the ability to just get open. This dude had 1,000 yards in 8 games last year. I believe he had more contested catches than anyone in all of college football, and he was out after 8 weeks. So love the player. He's my wide receiver one. It's by a very small margin. Those two are kind of together with two others in my tier one. But yeah, what do you think of Drake London?
Drake London is ridiculous. I think I'm so tired of watching these USC receivers just make me fall in love. Because it seems like every year we get one of them. And me and you both, obviously, I clearly going into the fantasy season, me more with Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're just gushing on the show. And Drake London's going to get the same kind of effect, but he's a different receiver, no question about it. My concern, we have him graded highly athletically, because while maybe he's a little bit slower than some of these guys in the 40, he's clearly an athletic freak, just plain simple. What do you think his 40 is going to be if he does run it? Just personally, I want to.
For low 4.5 or high 4.5, so like 4.57, 4.58.
Okay, because I like the Mike Williams discussion for the outside. I know Mike ran like a 4.5 flat or just above it, low 4.5s. So maybe he can work on that outside like that. And Mike Williams, he especially early in his career struggled to get the separation, and just won on the jump balls and hurt himself doing it. But he has developed more as a wide receiver, and that could be a clear, easy ceiling kind of thing for Drake London. But for me, even if he is struggling on the outside early on, because he's got release packages, but he doesn't get a lot of release per se. It's one of his lower grades for me, which says, he's like 6.5 out of 10, but he's still fucking high up on my board as my wide receiver 3. Clearly a first round talent. Like, it says a lot what he does everywhere else. My only thing is, if he does struggle out there, I think he could easily, with a good concept and good coach, be used as a big slot early on to get his feet wet, like Michael Thomas and Juju Smith-Schuster, another USC receiver, unfortunately for that saying, damn it. But it does make sense being a big slot while you're getting your package for the outside ready for the releases where he really needs to continue to develop. And maybe he does run a 4.6 something 40 because he's still not fully back from the ankle, and maybe that's why he doesn't run 40 or something. We'll figure all that out. But I am very confident that he is not going to be in Gil Harry or any of these other guys you want to compare him to because of slightly slower 40. I still think he's going to be a pretty good athletic freak. Thing is that there's a chance he dips down or scale a bit, which is why I was giving you shit about being wide receiver 1 by half a point. But Drake London is phenomenal, plain and simple. These first 4 specifically are just absolute studs. And Olave is not far behind, and neither is Pickens, Dotson. Like, there's a whole list,
Sir, there is a wide receiver you did not mention that we are going to obviously battle about a little bit. He's a little lower for you. It's Sky Moore. We'll talk about him in a little bit.
Listen, he's on the list.
I know. He's just way down there.
He's not way down.
He's way down compared to where I have him. No, you're right. And so I hope that Drake London doesn't test, because I want to just leave his athleticism grade what I see on film.
That's true.
I like when that happens instead of using the relative athletic scores, but those are more accurate, so we use them. You're right. Exactly.
Yeah. Which is my wide receiver 2. So
he's my 4. Why don't you get
we are mixed around with our wide receivers, which is not surprising. The relative athletic score, the combine was not his friend, which is first off. But on top of that, I rate his release. I'm gonna get his props out of the way first. Get his release up there with Drake London, where it's just not there yet. But he gets. It's the same thing. They're not winning off the ball every single play. They don't have this elite hand package, feet like steps or anything, but they just get it the fuck done. And they get it done on multiple levels of the field, especially Treylon Burks, who is versatile as hell. And that's something we didn't even get on with Garrett Wilson, who has multiple rushing touchdowns. at Ohio State. It's the same thing for Traylon Burks, where he could be used all over the field. He even says himself, I think, to help his stock, he wants to be like a bigger Debo kind of thing. But he is an absolute unit, and he's an athletic freak. I'm surprised he didn't play basketball at Arkansas as well as Drake London for USC. And then the other thing where he needs to continue to work is route running. And again, he just can win at the catch point so much. Uh, and he gets a lot of quick passes to just get the ball in his hands that he just hasn't developed this elite package like the Ohio State receivers have. And I'm technically counting Jameis Williams in that as well. So
Fair.
just saying. But I have a lower grade on this route running as well. And it's just, these are, if he can work on the quicker releases and having a more developed route tree, being able to break out a little bit quicker, and it's not like DK Metcalf style where we're absolutely concerned about it, but he wins the same way. Like, he can just win down the field without question. And that's why I think a lot of people are concerned, but they're also really happy because we've seen what DK can do at the next level, even without really gaining a much better route tree. I think Burks is already past then and has way much more potential to continue to develop that route tree and become an absolute havoc for every offense. But incredible hands, enormous hands. He plucks the ball out of the field without question. He's big enough to get dirty with the yak and the catch in traffic. He's among the best with the yards after catch for me in this wide receiver draft class. He is incredibly physical. He has the second best body control, only behind Garrett Wilson for me. To be that big, and arguably they should be tied. Honestly, I think it's a little bit biased probably from here, but because he's I'm just giving myself shit, but he's just so big, and to be able to, especially in back shoulder situations and stuff like that, contort yourself and just get ready and make every play in the book for that ball and make your quarterback look much better than he is, by the way. Everything Treylon Burks does on a football field is spectacular. And plain and simple, he is the best in the class at throwing up, and he's going to beat the shit out of you for that ball. Like, there's no question. He is getting that ball or he's going to die trying.
There was a catch that he didn't make. I don't even remember who it was against, but it's where he's on the sideline. He goes flying through the air, and he just barely couldn't get his toe down. Now, of course, in the NFL, it's not even close because he couldn't get two down, but it's a catch that you say, what in the world is this? Like, I don't remember seeing this. His catch radius is ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous.
And if you actually throw on, even if like you don't have to scout him, but if you just throw on his highlight tape, you're gonna say that every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Holy hell, what is this? Because that's what he is. And yes, we are disappointed by the combine. Plain and simple. We're disappointed because I don't know where I don't remember where we had him athleticism score, but
I had him at 9. I thought he was 9.
We had him at 8.5, 9 somewhere. I think it might have been 9, but he's at 6.5 with relative athletic score. That is very disappointing because, as I stated, he's tied with Garrett Wilson in grade for me. So just a little bit better tested, and he is the wide receiver 1 for a reason. I think it's all about, for me, landing spot for Treylon, because while I think he can dominate everywhere, for instant impact is where you want the landing spot. But I don't have concerns with him blocking. None of these receivers are great blockers in this class, but with that frame, it's just effort, and he has the effort. So I'm not concerned on that level. He had all the production. He's really fucking good.
Yeah, he is. I get, we talk about Drake London having a bump inside. I think Treylon will be a big slot to start. I don't think that he can be just an X receiver from the go because he doesn't have a route tree and he doesn't have the best release package. But when you see the glimpses, you see a little bit of wiggle. I get nervous though, because then I went back and I was like, well, he reminds me of DK Metcalf, but maybe I'm underrating what DK Metcalf was in college because it's been a while. I will say, when I went back and I watched DK, he's way more explosive at the line than Traylon was. But I don't think it's because Traylon can't be explosive. I think it's no one was really coaching him on how to be explosive right from his stance at the line of scrimmage, you know? So I think that there's a world where DK is a viable option for him. I will say, I don't think NFL teams are going to like him as much. I know that there's still buzz around him. I think NFL teams may because of Debo, but I think that there's a world in which Traylon Burks is still available at the top of the second round. And one of these other guys that we're about to talk about, or multiple, get drafted ahead of him simply because he isn't the cleanest separator and he doesn't have the cleanest routes yet. And NFL teams want that at this point.
There's a chance, but they're wrong. All right, moving on to your 3.
Who's
my
three?
4.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams is just ridiculous. We've these top 4. We can say the same thing. Jameson Williams is a unique blend of, I wouldn't call it size because I think he has a slighter frame, but height and speed. It's kind of rare that you find 6'1" and change, 6'2" when you round up, 6'2" guys that can move the way Jameson moves. Obviously, he didn't get on the field at Ohio State. Everyone's concerned about that. But look at the other guys that were there. That was just a preference type of thing for that offense. But when you see Jameson in the Alabama offense, which has produced a lot of good receivers, by the way, more than Ohio State at this point, for what it's worth, that's probably changing here soon. But when you see what he could do, I mean, he's as much a deep threat as you would ever want any receiver to be. However, he is not just a deep threat. He is much, much more than that. I do think he rounds his routes. I think that he isn't as crisp as a guy like Garrett Wilson, as a guy like Chris Olave. But I also don't think it matters because he is way faster than them. And that's saying something. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave ran in the 4.3s. I think Jameson Williams would have run a 4.2 something.
Yeah, I agree. There's a chance he runs 4.3s too, but in Indy it'd probably been 4.19 or some shit.
I also think that when you look at GPS data, I think Jameson was by far the fastest of the 3. But that's beside the point. Jameson, really wide catch radius as well. He's a lanky dude. I think an offense could build around him as the wide receiver 1. I think he can be an X receiver for you if you want. He's a good route runner in that, like, you're not going to get a lot of press coverage on him because he's blown by you. And that's valuable. Like, that's the thing that NFL teams might covet. Jameson might not be the best fantasy guy because of how a team might see him as, like, just a Z deep threat to start as he continues developing his routes. But he's going to be valuable for an NFL team. I am still of the mindset that he is going to be the first wide receiver off the board. I still think that. Just because that's game-changing speed. That's Tyreek Hill level speed, in my opinion, or close to it. And that's you can't coach that. And he's got room to grow, and that's the craziest part. There's a world where Jameson is by far the best receiver in this class, in my opinion.
I think that's Jameson Williams' negative. I know. The train's a bitch. I think that's his negative and his plus.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
Just good.
Yeah, just wait for the train. Yeah, that's okay.
Think it shut up. But no, for me, I think you're incredibly right. He's clearly not as refined route running, but I still gave him a really good grade for it. Obviously not as good as the Ohio State guys, but I have him better than Traylon. Better than Drake. So I think there's a really good reason for that. What we saw in the field this year is miraculous, plain and simple. And again, it speaks to the Ohio State room that he's even here, but it also speaks to his talent that he transferred to Bama. He didn't transfer anywhere else. He transferred to one of the other best schools in the country and wide receiver factories as well. His yak ability is one of, if not the best in the class because of the speed. The only reason you could say he's better, just pure yards after catch than Traylon is the speed, because Traylon's got to break all the goddamn tackles, but you're not tackling Jameson Williams. Obviously, versatility-wise, Traylon's better, but I gave him, -1 and a plus half, but -half for the limited sample size and inability to get in the field at OSU. I think it's a real question. I won't say it's a real concern, but I think it's a real question. Uh, and then lack of effort and willingness to block is a huge thing for me. For him, I dinged other people as well, but for him, it's one of those things like and it's the same with Mechie, and I talked about for the Ohio State receivers. Are they asked to block? Which I'm not sure, and that's the real question mark. And if Ohio State doesn't ask receivers to block and Bama, he's not going to fucking block. But he does
Right.
get a +5 because he gives fucking max effort on special teams, and that is why it's going to be a plus minus for him too. At the like we just said, because yeah, he gives all that effort, but it raises questions about the other stuff. Why he doesn't give the effort there, but if you spend a first round pick in your receiver, you probably don't want him as a fucking gunner. Like
I don't
you
know
don't
why
want that.
Saban did. It doesn't make sense that Saban used him as a gunner. It's
I
crazy.
don't know, but he even got a targeting penalty this year and got kicked out for it. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
But yeah, overall, I mean, my main concern with Jameson is just physicality through just getting with bigger corners. But we watched him do that against the SEC. Like I don't know how much to knock him when he's going against guys that are probably going to be playing at the NFL level on a weekly basis. And he was beating them because he's so quick that they can't get their hands on him. I will say, if he's not able to create separation immediately at the top of his stem, I think that's where you're going to see him struggle. But again, room to grow. I mean, he is not at all a final product. I think there are a couple of these guys that are close to it, but you can mold Jameson into being one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So, all right, let's get to year 5. And then I think what we'll do is we'll do kind of like we did with running backs and kind of jump around, pick guys that we want to just say a couple words about since we are already we're way behind, and that's what we do
Yeah.
here. So who's your 5?
Mine is Chris Olave, as I alluded to a little bit earlier. I do have a first round grade on him. He tested really well at the combine, ran great, did all the drills great. So nailed it there. His release package, route running hands, all elite. No question there. There is some question on catching traffic because, again, same thing as Garrett Wilson. While he did get more of it because he played more than Garrett did, because he stayed in school the extra year, you still didn't see it a lot. And most of his catching traffic was actually, outside the hashes,
Right.
making just incredible snags out there. He has great body control as well. He's an absolute master of the out route, it seems, and curl routes, which is an amazing thing and going to be valued highly going into the draft because those are 2 of the top 3 most thrown routes in the NFL. Another guy we have physicality concerns with because, no blocking really to speak of.
No.
There's some concerns there, and then you just don't see overall physicality getting out of breaks and stuff like that. He just uses his God-given ability in his feet to just get open. And there's a lack of yards after catch ability shown from Chris Olave at Ohio State because he was either wide open deep or caught a ball and was tackled right away, or caught a ball and went out of bounds right away. It was most of his career, and I don't know if that's necessarily detriment to him fully, like his skill set, but it is a concern that they didn't use him in that way. And again, Garrett Wilson does it better, anyways, and
Yeah.
Jackson Smith and Jigba definitely does it better with yards after catch. So again, maybe he's not asked to do that, but we didn't see it, so I have to grade what I see at the film. So those are his low points, but literally, besides the yak, the physicality and blocking, he's an absolute stud, and he's going to be one of my favorite receivers to watch at the NFL, just like he was one of my favorite receivers to watch in college.
Yeah. And very high up on Ohio State records. He went back for another year because he wanted to compete for a national championship, which was notable. People are going to knock him for that, and honestly, our production grade probably does as well.
Yeah.
But
Data guys knock, football guys love it. That's how
yeah,
that works.
yeah, that's just the dichotomy of evaluating these players. But so Olave, regarding the yak ability, I have the same concerns with that, but he also was just used on like he was either running goes or like deep posts or running just drags and unders and stuff. And so he didn't really have an opportunity to be a yak guy. But I just don't think he's physical enough to be super dynamic. Like we watched Drake London break in 5 tackles. We watched Garrett Wilson shaking people out of their shoes. I don't think Olave is that player. But I think, do you see him as an outside receiver or do you project him to the slot at the next level?
I see him as an inside outside. He
Okay.
has dominated Ohio State as an outside receiver. I don't think
Okay.
their teams are going to stray from that. I think you're going to see a lot of kind of similar to what we see with guys like Deontay and Elijah Moore, where they work both, they dominate at both, they get open
Yeah.
at both. There's no question or concern there, but you know,
Yeah. Well, and the reason I ask is because we brought up Tyler Lockett for Garrett Wilson, and I actually think that's a really good comp for Olave.
yeah,
I see a
he
lot of Lockett's game in Olave. So
does the exact same thing too. Inside,
Yep.
outside, wins deep, makes big plays.
Yep. Yeah, very similar players in my opinion. I think that might end up being our comp when all is said and done. I don't know, unless you have a better one.
That's silly, but just pure film grade. I have him as I believe my second grade receiver.
He'd be my
Because
third.
he's just behind Treylon, but production does knock him, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But I think that just speaks to how good this top 4 is, and Olave deserves to be mentioned as a top 5. Obviously, he's your 6, so I get the hesitation on your part, but
Yeah.
he is elite and will be a I won't say he's going to be a fantasy like stud at the next level, but he's going to be an NFL stud.
I think he's a fantasy wide receiver too, almost every year he plays.
I do too.
Like,
I'm just trying to, the top
Right.
4. These guys are going to be fantasy darlings for sure. There's no question. Olave, depending on the offense, maybe he isn't viewed as that necessarily.
It's true.
Maybe he's just more viewed as a chain mover, which is absolutely elite in the NFL. But maybe isn't the
Give him
fantasy guy.
to McDaniels and kick Hunter Renfro out, and he can
Alright.
play the Hunter Renfro role.
No, let's not do that.
I know. Okay, so we have to buzz through some guys. You mentioned that he's my wide receiver 6. I do want to talk about my wide receiver 5 really quickly before we move on to one of these other guys. Now let's just run through. So my wide receiver 5 through 10, Sky Moore is the guy we're about to talk about. Chris Olave, George Pickens, Jahan Dotson, David Bell still in my top 10, and then John Mechie. The reason I want to now, first, what's your 5 through 10?
Yeah. Chris Olave at 5, George Pickens at 6, Jahan Dotson at 7, Sky Moore at 8, David Bell at 9, John Mechie at 10. I will point out that, let's see, quickly, they are all like fucking right next to each other. Like,
I know. It's crazy.
Especially up to date. Like, John Mechie is a little bit lower than the other 4 there, but barely. Yeah. But Jesus Christ, this is close. And he's tied for 6 for what it's worth, or 7, whatever he is.
Yeah, sounds good. So I do want to mention, you didn't hear Christian Watson in that. Do you want to talk through that before we get into the guys that we like? Because my thoughts on Christian Watson are that people are going to get enamored by the athleticism. They're going to get enamored by the fact that he did have a Debo role at North Dakota State. I think his route tree was pretty expansive, but I also think that he's a very raw prospect and he's older. And so he doesn't come in my top 10. He's my 11. He's tied with Mechie, but I have a higher film grade on Mechie, so I tossed him at 10. What are your thoughts on Watson?
Exactly the same outcome for me, by the way. He is an athletic freak. With there's you could put on here concern about level of play. I think that's fair. He does everything good. I think some physicality, some actual yards after catch stuff, I think I'd like to see worked on slightly. Some catch and traffic stuff I don't think he needed to do because he's just outspeeds everyone, has some drop issues here and there. But like he's got good route running, he's got a pretty good release. Like he can high point with some of the better ones. He's got the body control to work all the levels of the field, make all the plays. I just think he's a little bit more developmental. And the athletic freak stuff, it rises him up the board, plain and simple. Yeah. But while I
Yeah.
do think he goes round 2 clearly, and I think I have him graded pretty much like that as well. It doesn't mean anything, like he's. It's bad for him because I think he's more for a win now team because he is a little bit older and he's going to be at his peak here in a year or two uh, if he just cleans up a couple things. So I think there's good things there, and he's going to be very, very productive, especially early on. People are going to love him, but there's some lasting concerns because there's some issues that we just haven't seen full development on film.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. All right, I want to talk about Sky Moore. So Sky Moore is my wide receiver 5. This is the only prospect of all the 150 some, 160 some that I've watched, 170 some, that my jaw literally dropped when I was watching him. And it's because I went into it just thinking, this is a good player. I've heard some good things, but like I don't expect a whole lot. I think with the other guys, you know their name, you know what you're walking into. You've seen their games on TV. You may not see Western Michigan play. Sky Moore, wide receiver out of Western Michigan. He's 5'10", 195. Smaller little guy, but when I watched him, the route running nuance is up there with the best of them. I think that I could put him in the Wilson Olave tier of route runner. I feel comfortable doing that. I think for a small guy, he's very physical. He's willing to block, and I do value that. I think I see a guy that he's going to try to put you in the ground. He's very, very competitive. It's very similar to what I saw at Elijah Moore last year. Something about these guys with Moore as their last name. I don't know who the Moore is next year, but we're going to need to find him. But Sky Moore does everything. He's really good at contested catches. He can go up and get it. Some people have concerns about his ability to separate downfield. Oftentimes corners would stay in stride with him, but it doesn't matter because I think someone said, it may have been Jeff. He may have said, he wasn't going all out when he was going on deep balls because Caleb Ellaby really didn't have the strongest arm deep. And so it looked like Sky Moore was kind of just staying within his range where if you let him loose, I don't think you have that concern. I love Sky Moore. I think that he is the Elijah Moore of this class and that undervalued guy that's going to be drafted top 50. There are rumors that the Packers love him and would draft him in the first round. And so what are your concerns with Sky? Break my heart here.
So our score difference between your 5 and my 8 is 3 points.
That's a lot.
Just want
That's
that
really
pointed out. And where we clearly have some, like 2.5 points difference is route running and hands. I have him graded very highly at both. And some of it, I do think his route running could be explained away, like you just said, where some of the times he would get open, put the hand up, and then start jogging.
Yeah.
But I don't think his route running is that refined. I don't have him up there with the Ohio State guys. I do have him highly ranked in the class, but I think even Dotson's a better route runner, just purely for me right now. And again, maybe we saw different films and we didn't get the same experience, and that's perfectly fine. I think he's going to be very draftable, second-round guy, impact player, plain and simple. There's some concerns there, but yeah, I think that's where we majorly defer. Because everywhere else maybe like half point, if that. But yeah, I don't think he's got the cleanest releases, but he's up here with the top of the list for me. It's just the route running. There's a lot of stuff where I think his release package is bolstering the route running early on, and he gets a lot of work early on, at least in games I watch. So, it buffs it up, and I think I just took it out of the context a little bit more than you did. And I think a lot of the deep routes was a lot of the route running concern for me. He does not get open deep, plain and simple. Like actually pure, he doesn't get open like the top guys deep. Is the way I should say that. Where
that's fair.
If Olave or Wilson run a corner or a post, they're fucking open.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, they're open. There's no question. He gets open, plain and simple, but I think he does more work short to intermediate for me, and that's where I have some concerns with the route running. And the hands are very, very good. It's just not the best game, and that's just where I saw where we defer on him. I think he's an impact player day one, but
Yeah. So, and I think the reason I give him such a high hands grade, I think you could see some concentration drops on his
yeah,
film.
that's why he's 8 for me, right there.
But it's rare that you see a 5'10" player that's able to go have aggressive hands in contested catch situations and get up the ladder. And I like the way he attacks the football. I think he attacks it really well, whether he's short or whether he's deep. But you're right. I mean, when you watch different games, you're going to get different mindsets. We've never really talked about. We don't watch every single game. It's not available to us.
Most of the
so
time we
we
don't. Most of the time we don't share what games we watch with each other, like verbatim. Hey, watch this.
Right. Now
Unless
there
it's
will be
something-
some.
unless it's some like drastic contrast between two different films.
Right.
But
Right.
purely exactly what you're talking about is what I saw with Dotson, and that's why he's slightly higher in both categories.
That's
Like literally
fair.
half point in both.
So really, we have time for one more. Do you want to talk about Pickens or do you want to talk about Jahan?
I Pickens probably.
Okay,
You
quickly
wanna-
on Jahan then. So Jahan, not super athletic, super undersized. He's actually smaller than Sky. The reason I think I'm lower on him than you, looks like, and maybe this lingered from his 2020 film because I think it was a problem. His catch in traffic was much better in 2021, but I thought that it was so bad that I still knocked him for it. Because I did watch a lot of his 2020 film. I gave him a 7 out of 10, which isn't like awful. That's actually better than Garrett Wilson for what it's
grade I
worth.
gave him.
Right. So I've got a 7 on that, and I do have his release as a 7 as well. I think that his release package isn't as good. Is that what you gave him to?
I gave him 7.5.
There it is.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing as Sky. I actually gave Sky a better one for that, but Dotson again, he is so dominant early. Like his short and intermediate release, route running, hands, control, all like that's where he's going to absolutely dominate you. And he showed enough speed to win downfield as well. Again, they're the same grade for me. The two,
Yeah.
Sky Moore and Dotson, he's just got a better film grade purely on a couple of different things here where he's just better and he's had more time. He's more refined, plain and simple.
Yeah, it's worth noting with Sky Moore, he was recruited as a corner too, for what it's worth, and he's learning the wide receiver position. So
Which
also a thing.
I could tell, and I did see that, and I was trying, like that's why, like there's some times where I was like, this route running, God damn it, it's so bad today. And then like 3 plays later, I was like, oh okay, well oh shit,
Right.
that's good.
Right.
That's
right.
For me, I think all these top guys, and maybe it's a little desensitized. Okay, we're just gonna we're skipping that word because we're stupid.
It's been a long show.
We're desensitized to some of these top guys for the jaw dropping, but if you're just plain first time looking at them, your jaw is dropping like yours did for Sky Moore. I thought Sky Moore was incredible. I think Dotson's incredible, but Pickens is where there's a lot of rifts with a lot of people. He tested very, very well. He is an athletic freak, as we all knew. He's had injury concerns, and he's had character concerns, plain and simple, since high school. And apparently, there's some people that we've seen say that it's past him. There's some that saying that it's not. So for that, we're just going to go past it because we don't know personally, and we'll never know personally until something happens. But
I will say it's notable that his head coach this year was still saying he needs to mature still.
Yeah.
So I think that, but again, that's what they said about Micah Parsons last year, for what it's worth. Like that is not always the detriment that we make it out to be.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm minimizing that from what I initially thought I was going to.
Yeah. And I think we both have it at the same level now. But he wins with release. He is not a refined route runner yet. I gave him a 6.5 for that out of 10. I don't know where that ranks for you, but he there's just not nuance there for sure. And I think lack of availability is part of that concern, but that's not what he was asked to do for this team, and most of the receivers weren't. You
Yeah.
were asked to go win deep, and we're going to beat the shit out of you in the running game kind of situation. And that's where this team won. But deep ball is where he wins. He wins high pointing, tracking, body control, physicality, and catching traffic hands. That's where he's going to continue to win. That's where he's going to win at the NFL early and often. I think he does a very good job of adjusting to every situation on a deep ball, especially on the throwbacks and back shoulder throws. We haven't seen anything necessarily in the yak ability from him, but we see that he's a plus enough athlete to have that trait. So I think there's room to improve for him at the next level. But there's still some concerns with him, and there's some production concerns. I think he does go late round one, top 40 picks kind of situation because there's so much upside with him. But we'll see. And again, this is another guy I think coach is going to love the fight to get on the field.
Yeah. For what it's worth, he's my wide receiver 7, and he has a grade higher than Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we both loved last year, was a top 5 guy. So that speaks to the depth of this class. With Pickens, I think you see the path to him being, again, I could say 7. The first 7 could end up being the best wide receiver for the NFL out of this class. Now, I obviously have ranked them how I think that they will be just at the next level. That's how I see them playing out. But I can make an argument that Pickens ends up being by far the best of this group because of that size speed combo, because of the blank slateness of him. Like I gave him a 7 in route running and you gave him a 6.5. Imagine if he gets that to what we would view as a 9, a 9 out of 10. Then you're looking at just a dominant guy. My comp for him right now is Allen Robinson. I think that he's a guy that he can win via release, but he doesn't really separate with his route running, but he's really good with contested catches. I will say I think I'd want some more physicality out of a dude that's that big, but I think that also speaks to his maturity concerns and his effort concerns. I think
100%.
when he's engaged, he is a good blocker. When he's not, he's kind of like Wilson and just doesn't want to do it. I think a good NFL organization is going to get the best out of him, though. So I'm excited for Pickens.
Another fantastic pick for Green Bay in the first because you could
Oh,
learn
yeah.
from the best and get deep shots. So that works out. Quickly, David Bell does everything well. Not a plus athlete according to testing. That's why he's 9. Mechie, same kind of thing. He's going to be an impact wide receiver 2 for a team. He's going to be a chain mover. He's a nuanced guy. He's a refined guy, but he's a clutch guy. I'll give him that. That's his bonus to get him in the top 10. Whenever he needed to be the wide receiver 1, he was clearly a wide receiver 1.
John Mechie is the guy that I would want my NFL team, aka the Browns, to draft in the 2nd or 3rd round. Now, if Sky Moore's available, then no. But you know what I'm saying. I think Mechie does everything really well. He's not going to be spectacular, but he's going to get the job done, and that's the kind of guy that you want. I do want to mention guys outside of the top 10. I'm falling for Calvin Austin. He's 5'7", 170. So that's concerning, but he is a really, really good athlete despite that size. He's about 12 to 15 pounds off of what Tyreek Hill is, and that's where I'll leave that. He plays he plays similarly in that he is physical. He can go up and win at the catch point. A little more so even than Rondale Moore last year. I liked Rondale more. God damn it. But but I think Calvin Austin has some huge potential.
Yep.
Are there any other guys that you think could be?
Yeah,
great?
yeah. So quickly, 11 through 15 for me: Christian Watson, Calvin Austin, Alec Pierce, another athletic freak, Wandale Robinson, and Jalen Tolbert. Honorable mention, honestly, Justin Ross for me. Sure, I don't think this year's film was as good as the film I watched last year per se, but he seems to be fully healthy, and I think it's getting back to that film, which is I would have him slightly higher than like 16, 17, wherever he's after me. So I think that's something to mention. It seems like he's getting clear medicals, all concerns are gone. I think he's going to be a good value pick for somebody.
Yeah. And then my last one that I'd like to mention, Khalil Shakir. I think that's a borderline day 2 guy. I mean, I have him graded as day 2, but where I think he'll be drafted is probably the fourth round. That I think could be that impact player from the 4th round that everyone's like, oh, he was day 3 pick. How could we have seen this coming? Well, because I'm saying it right now. He's a really good route runner, good separator, does a lot of things well. I think he profiles as a wide receiver 2 for a team, but I think there's a world where Khalil could end up dominating a target share pretty good, just with his skill set and what the NFL is right now. So
yeah, I will say I think some of the last couple of years we were somewhat excited with prospects of some of day 3 guys. With this class, while it is very deep at wide receiver, assuming for where my grades are at, I want my receivers drafted in the first 4 rounds for my NFL team because I think there's a steep drop off where there's some potential guys, but combine, Senior Bowl, we didn't see what we wanted. It just keeps getting worse. The tape isn't perfect, so there's some concerns there. So while it is very deep, I think there's going to be a lot picked the first 2 days, and it's going to be pretty fucking dry for day 3.
Yeah, I agree for sure. All right, that will absolutely do it for this episode. We went about 20 minutes longer than we normally do, but that's what happens when day 1 of free agency hits, and we have to talk about one of the deeper position groups in the entire class. So remember, guys, if you're watching or if you're listening, make sure you subscribe wherever that is. We'll be back on Friday. I think we're going to do the Chargers this week. Sounds right? We had talked about that.
We'll figure it out. It's not for sure. The thing with the Chargers is they trade away their 2nd round pick. They've spent all the money. I think they still have some money, but I think by Friday they are going to be fixed.
Fair.
So it may be more gushing than actually talking as a Friday fix. So I think we might pivot, but we'll see. It's still up in the air for that one. I think we will have a for sure return of quote unquote Marvel talk, but DC talk this Friday, going over the Batman and possibly some Marvel talk with excitement of upcoming shows. So
yeah,
there's another bonus for that episode. Speaking of the Friday fix, sorry we had some upload difficulty where our Friday fix last week wasn't uploaded right away, but it did go out today. So shout out to everyone that listens to that, especially Frankie, who talks to me all the time about it. But yeah,
Frankie loves those episodes.
They're so good though. They're so good. But yeah,
they're fun.
This free agency day was crazy. I hope tomorrow's half as crazy at least. And I hope
I think it might be crazier. A lot of big names still out there. I think we could get.
I kind of want to. I know there's a lot of different places that have like free agency trackers, and they still have like their top ones available and all that. So I kind of want to go through that. There's some key players, just like you said. Teron Armstead out there still. Another left tackle of like we still have to figure out what's going on with Larry Tunsil. He's clearly getting traded. See where it goes. I think they're trying to facilitate the Deshaun Watson one first, which makes complete sense. But
I think they're going together. I think they're both going to the Saints. Is my guess at this point.
Oh my God! So you're telling me right now the Saints are going to have no cap for the next 10 years and no picks for the next 10 years?
But,
oh my God!
But a franchise left tackle and a franchise quarterback, and I think
is it enough? What do they get back?
Well, as long as they can keep, I mean, what that would be is a commitment to going for a Super Bowl now, which is crazy. But
Yeah, I I think the Saint. It's either the Saints or the Panthers. Clearly, that's what we're being told.
yeah,
So I think we might get that in the next day or two as well. So that's a
yeah,
good thing. Hopefully, we know that by Friday. Um, but yeah,
yeah.
let's get going,
Well,
man.
and he has his deposition tomorrow, so we might know something from that too. So we might get a suspension here soon, and know what that's gonna look like. So, but who knows? All right, we need to go. I need to
Yes,
upload this.
please.
Thank you guys for sticking with us. If you did, for the whole episode. Again, we'll be back on Friday. Next week we are doing tight ends, and we'll probably have more free agency recap, and we'll find stuff to
or
talk about.
or just league news in general, free agency
Yeah,
trades,
yeah, very true.
suspensions.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's it.
Yeah, hopefully. But all right, that'll do it. So again, tune in on Friday. We don't know the team yet, but we'll be here around 10 o'clock, 10:30. That's around when we go. So
It could be 9:30. We are
it could be.
not consistent as we should be with that one,
It-
but it's because our
it's-
Friday nights are ever shifting right now. So
Yeah. It's a Friday night. What do you expect? All right. For Randy
just
Hall,
be
I'm
happy we
Christian
can
White.
speak. Fuck.
We'll talk to you guys later this week. Peace.